Hi everybody, this is Form 4, Lessons 6 through 8, and this is Week 2's assignment for the summer course. I'm going to go through the pages that I have attached to Assignment 2 and explain them. And then what you want to do is first take your quiz from the first week, then watch this video, and then study the pages and look for questions you might have. And what we'll do on Wednesday is we'll go through the grammar again using the worksheets for the lessons to answer some questions about the grammar we learned and the syntax. And then on Friday we will practice translations, practice sentences. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the first page in your PDF. It starts with some vocabulary notes. The important part of this is just to remember that you need to know all 4 principal parts for your verbs. And this is especially difficult in the 3rd and 4th conjugations. The first 2 are very regular overall, with a few exceptions like do, which has strange parts, but the 3rd and 4th conjugations have various patterns and various principal parts. And if you find a way that helps you remember them, great. If not, I would just say memorize them and don't worry about the patterns. Okay? But it does make a note here that in the vocabulary that you learn in this lesson, there's a new pattern that we haven't seen, where the present and the perfect stems are the same. So their example is defendo, defendere, defendi. And to find the perfect stem, remember, of any verb, you go to the 3rd principal part, which is the perfect indicative active, and you cut off the I so that we get defend here. But that would be the same as the present stem, defend. So that is a new pattern for 3rd conjugation words. So you have new words. You have about 12 or so of them. And I'm not going to say anything about those right now. Oh, except I'm going to say one thing. So the word contendo, which is on this first page of your documents, contendo, it says with the infinitive. So the meaning of the word is to strive or hasten or contend. And this verb requires, for its sense, it requires an extra word in the infinitive. And that's called a complementary infinitive when it fills out the meaning. So you hasten to do your homework, or you strive to please God. And those to please and to do your homework are complementary infinitives with the verb contendo. Okay, moving on to the second page. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the locative case. So this is another sort of rarely used case that we haven't talked about, much like the nominative or genitive, but it's a different one, less common. So for most words, in with the ablative is used to show place or location. And we've talked about that prepositions with the ablative tend to mean things in a place, whereas prepositions with the accusative tend to mean motion toward. Okay, so the example here is Lucia in Italia vixit. So Lucy lived in Italy. Okay. However, the names of cities, small islands, domus, which is home, and rus, are put into the locative case. You cannot use in for these words. Okay, so that's names of cities, small islands, domus, and rus. Okay. You have to put it in the locative case. Now, here's the locative rule. For cities and small islands, the locative is identical to the ablative, except in the first and second declension singular, where it is identical to the genitive. it is translated by in or at. So some examples. Roma, that's first declension. So Roma is nominative. Romai is locative. And the locative is in Rome or at Rome. Here's another first declension. Athenai, which is Athens. Now, the locative looks like the genitive singular, so it's Athenis, in Athens, at Athens. And then another example, Carthago. So that's Carthage, and that's third declension. So it's going to be exactly like the ablative. The locative case is going to be like the ablative. So we have Carthagine. Okay. Then there's another one. The locative of domus, which is home, is domi. This one's just has to be memorized because it's strange. So domus, the locative is domi, at home. The locative of rus is ruri. It's a hard one to say. And it's in the countryside, or I guess you wouldn't say at the countryside, but in the countryside. So here's an example. Maria ruri fixit. Mary lived in the countryside. So that's locative. And you'll notice that locative, the word sounds like locus, or like loco, which is a verb. And locus is place. So the locative is a case used for certain places. Yeah. Okay. Here's just a note about the use of things like faccio. So use faccio with iter to say march, or like make a journey, or make a march. So faccio iter, or faccio iterum would be I am making a journey, or I am marching. So faccio iter, or faccio with iter, means to march, or more literally to make a march or journey. Similarly, you use capio with consilium to mean to make a plan, or literally to capture a plan. But capio here means something more like to make rather than to capture, which is what it normally means. So capio consilium, those go together to mean make a plan. Okay? And then another one, pono with castra. So that's to pitch camp. Normally that would mean to put and camp. But when it's put together, pono and castra, it's to pitch camp. Okay? So here's an example. Milites iter faciebant. The soldiers were making a march, or the way that you're supposed to translate it more, the soldiers were marching. Another one, Galli consilium capiunt. So the Gauls, capiunt, made a plan. Capiunt consilium, made a plan. I'm sorry, are making a plan. Okay, then Marcus castra in Silvis posuit. So Marcus pitched posuit, camp, castra, posuit, castra, pitched camp in Silvis, in the woods. Okay. Okay, use in with the ablative with pono, not in with the accusative. The latter occurs sometimes but isn't common. So here's an example of what that means. Puella in mensa litteras posuit. So the girl, Puella, posuit, put litteras, the letter, on the table in mensa. So this note is just saying to use in with the ablative with pono, not in with the accusative. Okay? Okay, I'm going to skip this little blurb and move on to the next page, which is some more vocabulary. So you have adiuvo, comparo, conservo, dimitto, etc. So, let me go to that's on the next page. I'm going to come back to talking about those vocab in a second. So when you translate Latin to English, be aware that the Romans often used words without a preposition, where in English we would use a preposition. One example is proelium. So proelium means battle. So for Latin, we would have proelio. That would be the ablative here. They don't have a preposition there, but what we would translate that as in battle. In battle. So where the Latin just uses the ablative case to mean the in part of the in battle, in English we have to explicitly use the preposition. So here's another example. Milites proelio pugnant. The soldiers are fighting proelio, in battle. Okay? Or in the battle. In the ablative case, if locus is not modified by an adjective, use the preposition in. If locus is modified by an adjective, in is optional. So here's an example. In loco means in a place, whereas in loco idoneo, or just loco idoneo, means in a suitable place. Okay? In a third example, exercitus in loco idoneo castra posuit. The army pitched camp in a suitable place. Okay? Now, in the accusative case, in must be used. In locum idoneum. So into a suitable place. Notice there we have again, into expresses motion toward. And so it's going to be the accusative version of in. Okay? Okay, moving on. So now we're going back to the vocab list from this lesson. What do you notice about the first 5 vocabulary words? There are combinations of a verb you already learned and a prefix, either a preposition, ad or cum, or a particle, de. So, for example, we have adiuvo, where ad means to or toward, and uvo means help. And you already know uvo. So we get adiuvo. And together that means to aid, or to give help to, more literally. Okay, then we have cum and paro. And cum takes several words. Cum paro, cum servo, and cum venio. Okay? And when it is combined with those words, paro, servo, venio, it changes a little bit. So cum changes to com in com paro. That means to get ready, or more literally, to prepare together. That's where the cum comes in. Or for servo, we have con servo. That means to preserve, or more literally, to keep, servo, and then cum, together, to keep together, or to preserve. Okay, then we have convenio, which means to assemble. So venio means to come, and cum means together, so the meaning of convenio is to come together, or to assemble. And then we have another one, dimito. So di, in the dimito, means apart. Okay, that's where we get words like divide. So to send and apart, mito and di together means to dismiss, to send apart or send away. Okay, and there's a lot more words like that in Latin, where you just add a preposition or a particle of some kind to the verb, and it has this additional meaning. Okay. Okay, next. A preposition's spelling and meaning may change when it's used as a prefix. For example, the spelling of cum changes to com in comparo, and con in conservo, and convenio. The meaning of cum with changed to together when cum was used as a prefix. Okay. All of the compounds above are conjugated exactly like the original verb. So that would mean that uvo is conjugated just like adiuvo. Same conjugation, no differences. The last 5 vocab words in your list are also prefixed verbs. You have not learned the original verbs, but you can still recognize some of the prefixes. So we have confirmo and ad ministro, where we know the prefix "ad" as to or toward, and "con" as a form of "cum," which means with or together. Some prefixes change spelling to match an initial consonant. So that means, ad comodo means ac comodo, or changes to ac comodo. So the D changed to an extra C because D and C don't make a good sound together, an understandable sound together. So ac comodo. And another one, ad propinquo, changes to a propinquo with two P's. Or cum loco changes to col loco, two L's. Many words with double letters in English come from a Latin prefixed word whose spelling changed to make the pronunciation easier. So accommodate and to collocate in this lesson's derivatives are examples. Okay? Prefixes are common in Latin, and learning them will make many new words easier, so that's good. Okay, now next lesson, Unit 2, Introduction. This is just actually not part of a lesson, but just an introduction. So a pronoun takes the place of a noun. The word the pronoun replaces is called its antecedent. And you may recognize this word and parts of it. So ante means before, and kedo is fall. So it falls before, or it's referring back to. So a pronoun will always refer to some noun. Pronouns can be confusing for several reasons. One, pronouns have an attribute of verbs, person, as in first, second, or third person, and attributes of nouns, case and gender. So that can be confusing. Also, a pronoun must agree with its antecedent. And finally, some pronouns can function as adjectives. Remember the pronoun agreement rule. A pronoun agrees with its antecedent in gender and number, but its case is determined by its function in its own clause. That rule is going to be especially important, so make sure you remember it, okay? When a pronoun functions as an adjective, it obeys the adjective agreement rule, which is that the adjective modifies its noun in gender, number, and case. So when a pronoun functions as an adjective, it obeys that rule. There are 8 kinds of pronouns, and you should learn these in pairs for easy retention. So there's personal and possessive, reflexive and intensive, relative and interrogative, and demonstrative and indefinite. This list you need to really work on memorizing. Make sure you get this. I will put it on the quiz, and it will come up again and again. So you learned the first and second person personal pronoun and possessive pronouns in second form, or you reviewed it last year. And the third person personal, reflexive, intensive, and demonstrative pronouns in third form. Fourth form will teach the relative pronoun and interrogative pronoun adjective. So the relative pronoun begins a subordinate adjective clause called a relative clause and refers to a stated or understood antecedent. The interrogative pronoun adjective asks a question. The relative pronoun may be used instead of ut to introduce a purpose clause. This is called the relative clause of purpose. A clause is a group of words that has a subject and a predicate. An independent clause can stand alone and is a complete thought, while a subordinate clause cannot. 2 examples of subordinate clauses are purpose clauses and clauses beginning with quod. A third example is indirect questions, which are reported instead of being directly asked. So a direct question would be, who conquered Gaul? Whereas an indirect question is, he asked, who conquered Gaul? The tense of the verb is an indirect question in an indirect question is determined by a rule called the sequence of tenses, and you'll learn that in a little bit. That's going to be important. Other new grammar and syntax in this unit will include the ablative of separation, direct quotations, and more about prefixed verbs. Okay, so then we have another page of vocabulary. And next page. Okay, so prefixed verbs. In lesson 7, the prefixed verbs adiuvo, for example, did not change the spelling of the original verb, juvo. Neither do absum and commoveo. So absum means to be away or to be distant. And commoveo means to arouse or to move together, to wake up. Okay. The last 5 verbs in this new vocabulary list have teneo as their original verb, but the spelling has changed. The first E in each principal part has turned into an I, except in the 4th principal part. So, for example, cum plus teneo is changed to contineo instead of conteneo, and it means to restrain or hold together. And it goes the same for these other ones. They changed from an E after the T to an I after the T. Okay. Absum is a prefixed verb whose original verb is sum. It is conjugated exactly like sum, just with ab at the beginning, or a in the perfect system. So absum in the present system, which means present, future, and future perfect, and a in the perfect system, so perfect, pluperfect, or future perfect. Okay. Another vocab note. So use do, which means to give, with a prepositional phrase containing inter and a reflexive pronoun, inter nos, inter vos, inter se, to mean exchange, or literally give between. So principes obsides intercedabant. The chiefs were exchanging, intercedabant, were giving among one another hostages, obsides. And then there's another one, use teneo with memoria, ablative singular, to say remember, or literally to hold in memory. Teneo memoria. So, for example, virtutem militum memoria tenebo. I will remember the courage of the soldiers. Okay, I am not going to read the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there's 6 more pages of grammar reminders, but most of those are going to be review. So just read through those pages. And then you get to the grammar forms. These are the passive indicative, present and perfect system, the regular and irregular comparison of adverbs, which we recently did at the end of Form 3, and the personal pronouns, reflexive pronouns, and demonstrative pronouns and adjectives, and also I have in there the imperative to review. The imperative is pretty easy because you'll remember that it's simply the stem of the present stem plus the conjugation vowel in the singular and the conjugation vowel plus te in the plural. And then we have those irregulars, dico, duco, and facio. Okay, so on Wednesday we're going to go over some of this stuff in more depth, but do please watch this video before then so that we can get sort of a running head start on that. All right, God bless you.